Hey everyone, welcome to Today in DeFi. My name is Danger. I'm a DeFi trader and farmer, and today I'm here with Gaspard, who's one of the founders of Spectra. Spectra is a really cool fixed income protocol, and yeah, we're one of the first users of PWine, and we're fans of what you guys are building with Spectra. So thanks for joining us. And could you introduce yourself and maybe share a bit about your journey into DeFi?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm Gaspard, I'm French. I have a computer science background. My journey in DeFi started a while ago. My journey in crypto started in 2012, 2013. I was playing around with Bitcoin and really geek about privacy preserving technologies. And that was my banking system before I was allowed to have a banking system. And then progressively discovered Ethereum and started to interact a bit with what was DeFi at the time. Pretty boring initially. We playing with Maker, DAI and everything. And then progressively moved to DeFi Summer, which was completely crazy. It was like summer 2020. Lots of projects launching with pools providing completely unorganical APYs, but 4 digits APY, even more. And back then, so I knew my co-founder from school, from Lausanne, where we were studying computer science. And we were thinking about what we can do in DeFi and thought that we had all those yield opportunities, crazy volatile ones, but no way to speculate on the variation of the yield. And that's how the idea from APWine, so Spectra was previously called APWine as you mentioned, that's how the idea came, and we figured out if we wanted to be able to trade yield, we needed to encapsulate it, and that's how the basic concepts Spectra and APWine were invented back then.
Very cool. So that need for a yield trading protocol is what brought you to start building Spectra, APWine and then Spectra.
Exactly, 100%. There was no market for interest rates. You are just depositing liquidity in one protocol, checking the next day what is the APY today, and if your money was still there, because that was pretty wild at the time. But yeah.
Cool. Could you walk us through? So Spectra is pretty unique. It lets you trade yield in DeFi. Not many protocols do that. Can you walk us through what Spectra is today and what problem it's solving for?
Yeah. It's a yield tokenization protocol. It's addressing different categories of users. It's bringing fixed rate. So for more conservative users, basically, when you go on Spectra, you're able to obtain a fixed rate for a fixed duration. Let's say 10% fixed on ETH until the 30th of June. It's also allow you to speculate on the variation. So let's say that you have a project where the yield is quite volatile, or even the yield is points. You can speculate on the variation of those points, on the variation of the yield until the duration. And it's also a great place for people to make more yield because it's built as a layer on top of already yielding protocol. For example, Aave, Morpho, any of those protocol generating yield. Spectra is a layer on top, and by helping on Spectra, you earn that yield plus the yield generated by Spectra, so like trading fees, that kind of stuff. It's completely permissionless. That's very important, meaning that anyone can deploy pools on Spectra on top of their protocol, on top of any pool generating yield, and it's very composable by design.
Very cool. I like that you guys also work with other protocols, like you're boosting them, so there's a lot of crossover effect there. Cool. Cool. So can you walk me through principal and yield tokens? What kind of use cases these unlock?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, when we initially designed APY back then, we needed to find a way to speculate on the yield. And we figured out the good way to do it would be to encapsulate it. Because right now in DeFi, before us basically, when you were helping in DeFi, the principal generating the yield and the yield were encapsulated in the same token, which is the interest-bearing token. When you deposit USDC on Aave, you receive a USDC, which is your position and the yield that is accruing progressively on your position. When you deposit that on Spectra, we split the two. We have on the one side the principal token, which is the initial deposit, and the other side the yield tokens, which encapsulate the yield generated. And once you split the two, so you do yield stripping until at your fixed duration, you're able to trade the yield separately from the principal, from your initial deposit. And because you only trade the yield, that's how you can get fixed rate and speculate on those variations. So as I mentioned, the more conservative investor, they're usually buying the principal token. Why? Because the principal token represents a fixed quantity of underlying that you will be able to redeem at maturity. So taking back the example of Aave, you deposited 1,000 USDC there, you receive 1,000 principal tokens and 1,000 yield tokens. Well, if you sell your principal tokens, so usually at a discount, because they will be only redeemable at the expiry date, well, the person who buy that, they know at expiry they will earn this. And so they're buying 1,000 USDC for less than 1,000 of USDC. Hence, they get that fixed rate because they can compute how much they earn at expiry. That's the principal token. And the yield token on the other end is buying the yield directly. So let's say that the person buys the YT at a price that reflects, 5% APR, while if in practice until this maturity the APR is not 5 but 10, then they make a great profit out of it. And if it's less than 5, then they paid more for the yield that was actually less than this. So YT is the yield token, is the yield, principal is the amount deposited. And both can be bought and traded, but they give you exposure to different things. One is volatile, uncertain, one is certain and fixed rate. You know what you will have at the end.
That's very cool. So you're like serving different classes of users. You have the fixed income participants who are maybe whales or people who are just more conservative. They want like this fixed yield. And then you have like more degen T yield traders who want to like farm those airdrop points or just speculate on that kind of yield.
Yeah, exactly. That's how yield detection protocol became quite popular, because we had a huge wave of point projects starting with Eigenlayer, and people were really speculating on how much are worth those points. And so they were buying a lot of YTs, which were giving them leverage exposure to the yield directly. Instead of depositing funds to Eigenlayer and earning the points, they were buying the points from the people that were depositing on Eigenlayer directly. So leverage exposure. And because a lot of people were speculating on the yield, it was creating a bigger discount on the principal token side, so a very interesting fixed rate. And there you have the more conservative investor that don't want to speculate on points, but are very interested by a fixed, 10, back at the time it was even more than this, was like 20, 30% fixed APR. Just buying ETH that is locked and redeemable at expiry.
Very cool. So yeah, it's like a secondary market for those airdrop points and stuff. And yeah, it's really interesting. I think it also provides valuable information for airdrop farmers. So yeah, really cool project. Would you be able to maybe walk us through the interface to see like maybe how we trade YTs or PTs and maybe even the LP pooling?
Yeah, definitely. Let me share my screen. So for example, here I'm on the fixed rate category, fixed rate tab. I selected the exceptionality pool, and here fixed rate. And for example, I can lock 100 rep-stake ETH position. What that means here is for 100 rep-stake ETH, I receive 103 more or less PT inception rep-stake ETH, which means that at maturity, I basically earned the difference between the deposit and the amount of PT that I get here. Like for 100, I get a bit more than 100. So at expiry, I will have earned that amount difference. And that's like the expiry. The maturity is the July 20th of this year. And so you can compute, we're like mid-April to this, you earn 3 ETH and 3 rep-stake ETH and a deposit of 100 rep-stake ETH. That's equivalent to a fixed APR of 11.7%. That's very easy. That's exactly how you do it. You can see here the detail how it happens. So you buy principal token, you wait for expiry, and then you redeem the yield. That's for the first use case, which is the fixed rate. Then if we move to YTs, we can go there. And right, in like directly here, different yield leverage. So it's important to explain what a yield leverage is. And so basically, to explain this, well, for example, this first one, there's a maturity in 49 days. Why is there a leverage of 59 times? Because when you put $1 of ETH on the YT side, it gives you exposure to $59 of deposit. It gives you exposure to the yield of $59 of deposit. So yeah, again, instead of depositing this dollar and getting yield on $1, you get the yield of $59 until its expiry, which is 49 days. But that's very convenient, especially if you want to farm like a lot of points. And usually there are like points multiplier on top of the Spectra integration as well. For example, if you see this open pool, you have a multiplier of 10x. And so instead of, if you are like interested by this project, instead of depositing fund to farm those points, you can buy the YT directly and you get a leverage exposure of 33 times. Let me know if that's clear or not, but it's basically how you do it. And buying a yield is, you can do it the same way. You go here and okay, with $10 I get exposure to I get 336 YTs, so exposure of 336 units of underlying generating yield until the expiry. That's how it works. So that's for the yield, speculation on the yield. And then for the LP opportunity, which is one of the categories, like the liquidity providers, they get a combination of all this yield. They're providing liquidity to Spectra. Okay. And that's very easy as well. You can see here, by providing liquidity to Spectra, you earn the yield of CUSDO. You earn the points. If you buy the PTs in the pool while LPing, you earn fixed rate as well, and you get LP fees. And it's not on this pool, but it's on the pool. You also can get extra Spectra rewards. So it's really like a stack of yield that starts with the yield of the interest-bearing token. So here it's the yield from a PTD. And then you get also the yields from Spectra, which is like the trading fees, the fixed rate, and the Spectra reward on top. And so you see that the three categories of the product basically that I described are available here. So pool, fixed rate, and yield leverage. And you can see we have pools on different networks. We're explaining to other chains as well. Yeah, that's like a global overview of the product.
Yeah, we really Spectra. We've been using it a lot, and we've been doing different things on it. I personally have been LPing a bit, and then we've also been farming the PTs a bit when we see those yields shoot up. I really like that this protocol has something for everyone. There's different roles. You have like the conservative PT buyers, and you also have the more risk-loving YT traders. And I think at different times there's like different opportunities. It's not like any one person is like earning while other people are like losing money. It's like it's a market and there's like a balance. But we've had success like playing different parts of that market. So it's pretty interesting. I think it's a really good, kind of like a nice DeFi ecosystem there. But yeah, I heard that Spectra is positioning itself as an infrastructure layer. What kind of products or protocols would you envision like maybe being built on top of this?
Yeah, so there are like different categories. The first thing to note is Spectra is the backbone of interest rate derivatives. So what we do here is comparable to what we see in traditional finance as yield stripping, basically creating zero coupon bonds and coupon. And this can be used in more complex products, as I mentioned, as the basis of more complex products or derivatives. So like a structured product, things that you see in TradFi that maybe are a bit complex for DeFi as it is now, but we see more and more projects that will use our assets to build things from there. For example, one key strategy that is being built right now with principal tokens is like the PT looping. So users buy the principal tokens, so they get a fixed rate on Spectra, and then with this principal token can be put as collateral on the lending market, and they borrow again. They buy more principal tokens with what they borrowed, and they just create a loop. And that's a lot of hedge funds currently are doing that in DeFi, so optimizing yield that way. It can be used as collateral in other protocols, not just for the looping, but just in lending markets in general, in different derivatives like options. That's like a very common usage of Spectra. We see a more high-level product being built on top of Spectra, because right now when I explain everything, you have to understand principal tokens, yield tokens, but eventually it's very easy to provide like fixed rate products using our assets. I think there are like other protocol building on top of Spectra, because Spectra is also a liquidity marketplace for this project. I think since the hype around yield tokenization protocol with EigenLayer, every protocol integrates puts the integration of their integration in a yield tokenization protocol as part of their roadmap. It's part of their game plan, not just their go-to-market for point project, but really any project they want to have those pools, and they come to us. They also come to like competitors and they create pools because they want users to be able to trade their yields. They want users to be able to get fixed rate on top of their yield opportunity. And for us, it's a great way of earning visibility and usability in a way, having different types of investors and actors interacting with their products, but through fixed rates or variable yield. And so we see everyone putting integration for this. And as I mentioned, is a liquidity marketplace. We have like convex like platforms. So platforms focused on like mostly the tokenomics part, the incentive model to boost the yield of the liquidity providers. That's something that is being built at the moment on top of Spectra, and that will help a lot also having users and like bringing LPs and having better yield on top of Spectra. Yeah, that's already like two important categories. We have also like other elements or map that would facilitate a lot more integrations, but that's something we can discuss later.
Yeah, very cool. I like that you guys are, it's very taking advantage of composability, so you're built on top of yield-bearing protocols, but then other protocols can also be built on top of you. And I think that makes a lot of sense because there's a lot of opportunities on Spectra right now. We are consistently using Spectra because we're seeing like really good like PTs or LPs or sometimes like YT opportunities. And yeah, obviously other protocols also want to have these attractive yields for their users, so can definitely see that happening. Yeah, and what's coming up next for Spectra? What should users and viewers be looking forward to? Any new features or launches or?
Yeah, since we launched about a year ago, we already had we're shipping a lot of progressive updates and upgrade on the product. The major one that is coming up actually in about a week will be the AMM. We are like switching AMM models to be more efficient, more concentrated, especially with point projects or any project where the yield is flows in different ways than indirectly. The interest-bearing token, as I initially mentioned, is like airdrop on top, and it required us to change a bit how the MM works, but that will be a big update. It will come with new oracles as well, which are very important because that's how we facilitate integration in any lending market. And the PT looping is a key driver of TVL and growth for those pools. We have limit orders, so basically all this is features to make the markets more efficient, because the more efficient a market is, the more volume you have, the more revenues you have for LPs, and the more revenues there is for LPs, the more liquidity you get. And that's like a first key area of improvement for us. And the second one is actually changing completely the paradigm of yield tokenization protocol, which have a common paid point, which is the expiry of those pools. All those pools, so PTs and YTs, they have expiry, which means that the AMM liquidity have expiry as well. And so we built Metavaults, so taking inspiration on Morpho, where you have a curator vault that facilitates the deployment of the liquidity between different markets, and sometimes a market that expires. Well, we took inspiration from this and built our own Metavaults, so people will be able to come in Spectra, users will be able to come in Spectra and deposit liquidity on a vault directly, and this vault will manage the liquidity on the underlying permissionlessly created markets, which means that the LP won't have to have in their calendar that there is an expiry and that they will be able to withdraw the liquidity, look at the new opportunities, redeploy again. That will be done automatically. That will be done by the curators. It will also help compounding yield, just boosting the returns in a general manner. It will be a game changer also for project, because as I mentioned right now, every project wants to have a yield tokenization protocol integration. And that's why, being the first permissionless yield tokenization protocols, we had a lot of inbound from projects that couldn't be integrated in other alternatives. But the issue is, once they get integrated, they deploy a lot of effort to grow liquidity in the pool, and eventually they have to redo it again once the pool expires. And now that we will have Metavaults, then they will be able to build a strategy where they know they will have continuous liquidity on a particular yield tokenization protocol. So that will be a game changer. We're working hard on this, and it will be deployed very soon. Let's put it that way. A fixed date on this, but that has been in the design of that V2 actually since the beginning, but we had to ship it progressively. And it is in the design of that V2 because we believe to be completely permissionless protocol, you have to have those different layers, and you have to have this curation layer that definitely helps the efficiency of markets that otherwise would be too fragmented. That's a key thing. Then, of course, again, like more integrations, more chains, more ecosystem. We want to be like the default options for protocols and chain to have fixed rates and interest rate derivatives in general. So we will definitely put a lot of effort into an horizontal expansion there. And that's like a very first step. And I think for the second half of the year, we are thinking about like other types of derivatives and product that we can build on top of on top of the current infrastructure. But that's also something where we leave some gaps because we believe to be relevant in DeFi, you need to be relevant for DeFi as it is now. And I think right now, PTs and YTs are definitely the backbone of interest rate derivatives in DeFi, and will stay that way for a while already.
Very cool. Sounds like it's going to be an exciting ECC this year.
For sure.
Yeah. But yeah, that's actually really interesting. I thought the main thing was going to be Metavaults, but it sounds like there's Metavaults, but also other stuff. Like you guys are actually even changing the AI that you're using. That's pretty amazing.
It's making the market super efficient, making the protocol super integrable, and then changing completely the paradigm, having a layer that make the liquidity sticky for not just us, but also for the protocols that are working hard on those integrations and for the users that want to have liquidity on the product all the time.
Nice. Yeah, the rollover thing, I think it makes a lot of sense because I think I've had experiences in the past where I'm in a PT and then I'm usually like in like multiple farms and I just forget about it. And then a week later, I realize that like the PT expired and I need to get out. So it's like lazy, like it's inefficient for that liquidity just be sitting there not doing anything. So the Metavaults idea, I think that's quite cool. And for the A thing, I guess that's also for efficiency that you guys are working on, or?
Yeah, 100%. So the way we do it is previous design. Both designs are built on top of Curve at the moment, but basically the previous design we had like a custom consultation parameters, and it was mostly designed taking into account that we are permissionless on top of all ERC 4626, and it's not necessarily the case with Point Project. And we want to be more flexible and concentrate the yield in a different, concentrate the liquidity in a different manner. So we had to rethink the whole model. Also taking into consideration all the past years of data that we have now and all the pools that we launched and everything that we saw, we are now much more qualified to ship a better design. And so that's what we do, because efficiency in the market is key. That's how we bring LPs. It's not by putting artificial yield, it's by having a market that generates enough volume for it to be interesting for LPs through the fees. So yeah, that's like way better consultation, more efficient gas-wise, better oracles. I think that would be a game changer. That and limit orders, of course, which facilitates also more depth in the books, in trading in general, because we have a lot of demand. We have institutions that want to use Spectra. Some of them do like small trades, small for them, of course, but it's still like trades of several millions. And then we want to facilitate like bigger entries, bigger trading demand. So we have to be more efficient. That's like a continuous obsession for us.
So the new A will increase the liquidity depth and the trading volume.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're looking forward to that as well. Yeah, it's great to talk to you. You guys basically invented yield trading. Like back in the day, AP1 was the first like seriously good yield trading platform in DeFi, and now you guys, it's really good, cool to hear that you guys are still innovating and building new stuff and looking ahead and thinking ahead of what you can do to make yield trading better in DeFi. So yeah, thank you so much, Gaspard. Where can people find out more about Spectra or start using it themselves?
Yeah, so Spectra.finance. You can follow us on Twitter as well. I think we have a Discord, so please join the community, ask all the questions that you have. We're very happy to talk, whether you're a trader, a curious investor, or a project that want to integrate or build a strategy with Spectra. Yeah, we have a team available, and we love connecting those links. So yeah, happy to discuss. If you have any questions, let us know.
Cool. Thank you so much, Gaspard. And yeah, that's it. Check out Spectra.finance, and thank you for listening to Today in DeFi. Okay.
Thank you.